Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. Great to have you with us. President Trump back before the Marxist Dem judge Juan Merchan Tuesday, where he sat for a contempt of court hearing. Prosecutors last week filing a nasty motion to hold President Trump in contempt of court for violating Judge Merchan's expanded gag order, which barred President Trump from criticizing Merchant himself and his highly conflicted family members. Merchant said that he's going to wait, though, to rule on whether he's going to be a tough guy with President Trump, asserting that Trump had violated the gag order. It's unclear when he'll actually issue any kind of ruling. Now, I think that's the first smart thing I've seen Merchant do. Trump not having any part of this Marxist judge's violation of his First Amendment rights, tweeting the following while the court was on lunch break. The highly conflicted, to put it mildly, Judge Juan Merchan, the president said, has taken away my constitutional rights to free speech. Everybody's allowed to talk and lie about me, but I'm not allowed to defend myself. This is a kangaroo court, and the judge should recuse himself. Well, there you have it. And the Hamas sympathizers who've been taking over college campuses, particularly in the Ivy League, pushing their anti-Semitism, their anti-Israeli bull. They continued their demonstrations this week. In New York, they've now taken over 2 college campuses, NYU and Columbia University. And at Columbia, the president of the school has suddenly decided on, well, there won't be any person in classes for the rest of this semester. In other words, students who want to learn are now paying the price for a university that is openly allowing bigotry, anti-Semitism, anti-Israeli protests on campus. Imagine paying more than $70,000 for your kid to go to an Ivy League school online. President Trump had a few words to say about the ongoing situation. President Trump saying these Hamas demonstrations are all happening because Joe Biden enables them and doesn't even know where he stands on the Hamas-Israeli war. Take a listen to President Trump.
You get out and vote. What's going on at the college level and the colleges, Columbia, NYU, and others, is a disgrace. And it's really on Biden. He has the wrong signal. He's got the wrong tone. He's got the wrong words. He doesn't know who he's backing. And it's a mess. And if this were me, he'd be after me. He'd be after me so much, but they're trying to give him a pass. But what's going on is a disgrace to our country. And it's all Biden's fault, and everybody knows it. He's got no message. He's got no compassion. He doesn't know what he's doing. He can't put 2 sentences together, frankly. He is the worst president in the history of our country. And again, what's going on is a disgrace. Now, it's interesting outside for great Americans, people that want to come down and they want to protest at the court, and they want to protest peacefully. We have more police presence here than anyone's ever seen. For blocks, you can't get near this courthouse. And yet you have nobody up at a college where you have very radical people wanting to rip the colleges down, the universities down, and that's a shame. But it all starts with Joe Biden. The signals he puts out are so bad. And I can tell you, he's no friend of Israel, that's for sure. And he's no friend of the Arab world either. You take a look at what he said. He's no friend of, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. He wants to take like a middle ground, and oftentimes that doesn't work, but it's certainly not working here. But what he's done to Israel is abandon them. And he's trying to be as nice as he can to the other side. Call it the Arab world, but that's not working either because they get him. And he's an incompetent man. Peace will never happen with a guy like this. Thank you very much.
Our guest today is author and journalist Naomi Wolf. Naomi has a new book out called Facing the Beast: Courage, Faith, and Resistance in a New Dark Age. We recommend her book to you highly. And here now is Naomi Wolf, and the book is Facing the Beast. And I've got to add the subtitle, Courage, Faith, and Resistance in a New Dark Age. I mean, that's a compelling title. I know it's a compelling book. So let's start with this dark age and the beast. Give us, what is the beast And how dark is this age?
Yeah. Well, these are fair questions. So the beast has, like any good metaphor, multiple layers of meaning. In the book, the chapter that, from which that title is drawn, it's an actual bear in our yard. That really happened. We moved to upstate New York at the start of the pandemic because my husband and I both knew that what we were seeing around us in terms of the closures and the kind of draconian suspensions of civil liberties meant that something very bad geopolitically was happening and about to happen. So in the middle of the woods, one day this bear just showed up and started encircling the house while I was upstairs hiding in the bathroom with a BB gun because I grabbed the wrong gun. I barely know how to shoot a real gun. I'm trying to learn. But the metaphor there is that the bear had gotten more and more comfortable because we had not done anything to deter it. And then finally we had this monster in our backyard that was trying to kind of break in and menace me. And this is a metaphor in that essay that stood for how comfortable we've become with the role of China. Not seeing it as a threat, while China has been waging war on us in the way that it has traditionally waged war, which is not with bullets, not with a visible invasion, but buying up our ports, buying up our water resources, buying up our farmland, institutional corruption, elite capture, regulatory capture. And in that chapter, I'm revealing that my original research found that the mRNA injections, whose devastating effects are a theme of the book because of the work of the 3,250 doctors and scientists that my site oversees, and reading through the Pfizer documents released under court order, I found that the IP and the manufacturing, the distribution was in an MOU with China. So basically our worst adversaries who want us gone, dead, diminished, vanquished, were manufacturing, distributing this injection that this team of doctors and scientists that Amy Kelly and I, my COO, oversee, were finding had caused catastrophic levels of murder, disabling injuries, neurological injuries, strokes, heart attacks, and massive levels of sterilization of the next, making it more difficult for us to kind of replace ourselves in the next generation. So that also is the beast. And then lastly, the beast is, metaphysical in the sense that by the end of the book, I've kind of concluded that the evil that we saw unleashed on the world in 2020, I couldn't explain it in any normal political human history. It was too massive, too coordinated, too impressive, too impeccable. All these leaders saying the same things in lockstep. And so I kind of reluctantly concluded there really was such thing as, these metaphysical dark forces that had kind of returned to the earth in my analysis, drawing on someone else's work. And so that's the beast. And then, the last layer of the beast is there's also a theme of how civilized people overnight agreed to create a discrimination society, and the ugliest part of people's willingness to exclude and diminish and otherize, the unvaccinated in this case, but it could be the Jews or African Americans or, gay people or, whoever you want to exclude, right? People who thought they were very tolerant and egalitarian were very happy to allow the ugliest kind of Jim Crow type laws to be reestablished overnight in America. So that too is the beast. Like what they see in the mirror is the worst of human behavior toward other humans. So those are all the beast.
They are all the beast, as you say, metaphysical in terms of the expansive symbols that are evoked here. When you talk about you as a longtime liberal, progressive, a lefty, suddenly you're looking at all of your friends, many of them and associates in New York primarily, and you suddenly find out that they're not quite as tolerant as you thought they were.
Exactly.
And they're suddenly all, and by the way, all of us are discovering, we knew that on the right, people who are conservative really didn't like them, but didn't really hate them, didn't have any desire to run them to ground, and even in the sense of Donald Trump. 2016, he wins, and the rallies, they're chanting, "Lock her up," referring, of course, to Hillary Clinton. And you can see the president blanch, cringe at the very thought. And he decided upon being president not to prosecute her, even though she was clearly guilty of a number of felonies and acts against the interests of the United States. I mean, it would have been entirely rational, and some would argue still entirely appropriate. But then to see him as he steps out as this former president, and all of a sudden they are after blood. They want him imprisoned. And now Benny Thompson, the head of the J6 committee, he wants him killed. He wants to eliminate his Secret Service protection. This is ignorance of a level that I never dreamed we'd see, period. But certainly in this moment, to see this happening, our children, every one of us watching this, there is no such thing as tolerance on the part of the left.
Well, unfortunately, that's true for the most part. I mean, obviously, people on the left who are rank and file, there are many good people, still who are horrified at what the leaders of the left and the leadership of the left and the policies of the left have become. But they're not very vocal, because they're afraid of being canceled. So, I mean, I have a beloved relative, and I'm going to go visit her. And I was just on some major conservative personality shows, and she asked me not to mention that, because she doesn't want to be ousted by her little network of other liberals. And it's like, that's not the kind of liberals. That's not the liberalism that I was proud of being, that was open-minded and engaged in open debate and free speech and respected that people had differences of opinions. That's a just really totalitarian version of liberalism that's really not liberalism anymore. It's Marxism. It really is. That's not an overstatement. So yeah, we're in a bad time. That said, as I always say at these moments, Mr. Dobbs, partisanship is never going to save us, because look what happened in Congress. Both the Republicans and the Democrats in Congress were waving Ukrainian flags treasonously in our sacred civic space after sending billions of our tax dollars to a country that isn't a democracy, and meanwhile, veterans are waiting 6 months to get treated for PTSD. I mean, it's not a left versus right corruption right now, although the left is particularly egregious. It really is kind of populist, patriotic nationalists realizing that genocidal maniacs who are elites are really trying to enslave and injure them. And this transcends partisanship.
We're talking with Naomi Wolf, facing the beast, as she puts it, courage, faith, and resistance in a new dark age. And we're starting to get a sense of just how dark. We'll be right back with Naomi Wolf and Facing the Beast. Stay with us.
Folks, did you know that over 90% of the pharmaceuticals in America are not made here? We saw during the China virus pandemic what happens when we are dependent on other countries like China and India for our most critical pharma needs. Recent clusters of respiratory illness have been popping up around the world, and in the United States, it's dominating the headlines. It's also shedding light on the need to be prepared for an unexpected medical emergency. Will you have what your family needs when the next crisis hits? Our good friends Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Drew Pinsky over at the Wellness Company have just what you need. with the Wellness Company's medical emergency kits. These kits include 8 life-saving medications with drugs like amoxicillin, Z-Pak, and ivermectin for you to keep on hand, along with the guidebook for safe use. From tick bites to COVID to extreme bioterror events, every scenario is covered. Go to twc.health/Dobbs and grab your medical emergency kit right now. Don't wait until you need it. Take control of your health today with the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit.
We're back with Naomi Wolf, and the book is Facing the Beast and Courage, Faith, and Resistance in a New Dark Age. Naomi, I just want to understand, you're no longer a liberal. You're not, you still want to hold on to some of the, it seems to me, this is my analysis from afar, you still want to hang on to some elements of being being a liberal meant some years ago. None of that is left. There is none of that. You referred to it. There's a totalitarian streak now on the left, whether it be Barack Obama. No president had ever gone after journalists the way his administration did. No administration had ever dealt directly and legitimized Iran as he did, and he's institutionalized that legitimacy that he sought. And this president, Biden, has just completely embraced it without knowing anything about what to do when suddenly missiles and rockets and drones are flying toward their targets in Israel.
Yeah.
This is a new time, and it is much darker, isn't it?
It is. I mean, this issue of who suppresses liberty. I mean, first of all, I just want to say for the record, I do still think of myself as a liberal, but I'm one of like 3 people left on the planet who are classical 19th century liberals, because in that time it meant, as I said, civil rights, equal rights, rule of law, First Amendment, freedom of speech, so I do want to cling to that label. But I am an independent. I did walk away from the Democrats, just like I haven't embraced the Republicans. But, this may be annoying, Mr. Dobbs, but I will always, at a moment like this, say, yes, Obama was a catastrophe in terms of civil liberties. I was one of the few journalists, maybe the only American journalist I know, to go to Guantanamo 6 months into his administration. He had promised, as a campaign promise, to close Guantanamo. And when I was there, they were building it up massively, building it up. He had no intention of closing it. He was the guy who droned American citizens. He was the first president with a kill list. I could go on. And I remember how frustrating it was that even at that time, liberals didn't want to hear my warnings about that because he was our guy, right? And liberals do have this blind spot that we're good people, so we can't ever do anything that's bad, right? And there's Barack Obama with a kill list. And, a wish to, it was under his administration that the National Defense Authorization Act was extended that allowed the president to keep journalists or anyone without charge of trial indefinitely, which most Americans don't know. But who set the stage for that was George Bush Jr. And in the wake of 9/11 and with the launch of the global war on terror, that's when the surveillance state really got firmly established. That's when people began to be detained, unduly without due process. That's when there were people who were critics of the administration were called subversives or extremists. I mean, no one's pure in this. We've really got to understand whatever our views are, that it's a party's not going to save us. We have to save ourselves. And our founders knew that, right? They set it up so that it is we who are supposed to impeach, get rid of, prosecute our leaders when they stop defending our liberties. That's in our founding documents. So I want to agree with you that Obama was a nightmare, but I will always annoyingly point out that it's history shows that totalitarians on the left and fascists on the right take the same steps to suppress liberties. And
you can't.
If you give them a chance, they'll do it.
Well, honestly, you can't offend me or worry about whether or not I would resent you bringing up George Bush, because I was blackballed over my career by two White Houses, one and all of them from 2000 to 2000, the two presidents of
Wow.
the 2000 decade, and that was George Bush blackballed me because I insisted that he name the enemy, radical Islamists, rather than terror, and and Barack Obama, because I insisted on actually securing our borders, actually maintaining a lawful immigration regime, and insisting that we call them what they are. Legally, the term is illegal alien, and a few other offenses against the administration.
How
But
prescient both those positions seem now.
well, it seemed obvious, frankly, to me at the time, and I think it did to many people who didn't speak out on the issue. But the reality is that we've been dealing with a deep state for a very long time. The Patriot Act that you referred to with George Bush's administration, I mean, that is the foundation of the surveillance state that we have today. But its antecedents are long ago. You couldn't even begin to think that the Pentagon Papers would be released by the Times or the Post if indeed they had the strictures that we do now. And that should sober everyone up quickly. But this goes back many decades, and people don't want to admit that our government lied to them from the 50s on, particularly the CIA, about what was Vietnam and that sad, tragic course that it followed. But it was pure deceit on the part of the government, a deceit that I think is still well in place and invigorated. Your thoughts?
I mean, sadly, I agree with you. I actually thought you were going to go back to, I was braced for it, that you were going to go back to President Lincoln in suspending habeas corpus during the Civil War. And, then fast forward, most people, it's been so erased from history. Most people don't know. I didn't know till I was, well past when I should have learned about it, that there was a coup attempt in the 40s, I believe, by a group of very respected American businessmen who admired what was going on. Perhaps it was the 30s. I may have my decade wrong, but Smedley Butler exposed it, and they admired Mussolini, they admired Hitler, they thought that was all great, and they wanted to see something similar in the United States. So I totally agree with you. I think we're in a time, and it relates to the themes in the book, when the scales are really falling from our eyes. And I miss the pre-2020 time when I believed that even though there were some bad apples, most journalists were trying to tell the truth, right? The Washington Post and the New York Times were trying to do a reasonable first draft of history. I believe that, sure, there was corruption, but most of our institutions were solid. Our hospitals wouldn't try to murder people. Our schools wouldn't be abusing children. And then all of that got inverted in 2020 and, to the present. And I really do think we're in a time, and this relates to the metaphysical nature of the time we're in, where literally all around us, history we thought we knew turns out to be a sham, right? We see the erasure of history happening before our eyes right now, and the reinscribing of new false histories, happening in real time. And we see that we can't trust the science, we can't trust our doctors, we can't trust our hospitals, we can't trust the schools. Wanted to suffocate our children and keep them from learning language and, remotely educate them because they'd been bribed, on and on and on. The corruption is endless. So yeah, it's not new, but I do think we're seeing the depth of it in a uniquely transparent way right now for reasons I can't explain in normal terms.
We are a nation now in great distress. We are a nation that is at a historical point. The easy statement is it's an inflection point. We don't know what this is, but we do know that we've been destabilized as a society and a nation to such an extent that Barack Obama can, with his Marxist friends, brag about achieving what he intended. And that was, as he announced, the fundamental transformation of America. We just have to be sure that we can find some constraint against how far that transformation goes, fundamental or otherwise. Naomi Wolf, thank you for being with us here. And her book is a wondrous read. We recommend it to you. Facing the Beast, Courage, Faith, and Resistance in This New Dark Age. And I hope to have you back soon. We're out of time, and I always hate that part of our discussion. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Thanks to Naomi Wolf. And remember, Facing the Beast, her new book, and we recommend it highly. Thank you for being with us today. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the Great America Show. Follow me on Twitter, Truth Social at Lou Dobbs, on Facebook and Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight, and on Rumble and on Frank's Speech and X and a host of platforms. Join us for Lou Dobbs Tonight. Thanks, everybody. God bless you, and may God bless America.